I did discuss this with Chief Beladle from Davenport, since we share the bridges, and they also would like to mirror our efforts on this side, or on their side as well. So we're still in the process of seeing how far this can go. I was talking with Alderman Hurt and Alderwoman-elect Barnes about this project, and we're going to see about the possibility of 988 only phones. Basically, you just pick up the phone, and that calls that hotline. You can speak with a counselor immediately, confidentially, and free, so that we can get people to realize that there is help out there, and tomorrow's another day, and we can hopefully turn back some people that are deciding that out of desperation, that's their last option. So if there's anybody has any questions.
I would suggest maybe two sides, one on each side. You know, there's two ways to make the bridge rather than just the right side or the left side.
Yes, and I've been discussing with Public Works about the idea about what it's going to take for, we're going to have to talk with IDOT to get permission for these. And then of course we have the Arsenal Viaduct. You know, we might run into a little bit more issues when we start talking about getting closer to the Arsenal Bridge. But again, Public Works can make the signs themselves, so this is pretty much a no-brainer in my opinion. So, yes.
So while we're on this subject, concerning the river, what about the entry from Mile and everything? Is there something that can be smaller?
We certainly can. Right. We certainly can. It really gets that information out there. I will say that we don't typically have that problem at the Milan bridges. Not that I can remember. It's just they're not as high up, and people don't typically utilize those. Absolutely. So.
Any other questions? Thoughts? All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief. Great idea. Wonderful. All right. Next up, I think Miles is talking about the I-80 slash Casino West development. Miles and a few others.
Apparently my do not disturb All right, well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. The City Manager and I are speaking tonight about the proposed development on the Casino West site. The proposed development consists, as you know, of a cannabis dispensary and a gas station. There have been concerns raised about the potential negative impact of this project. Our objective this evening is to provide you and the general public with additional background information, explain why staff are supporting the project, and lay out next steps. So, the site of the proposed development and much of the surrounding wetlands were previously owned by the Riverstone Group. In 2022, they donated the 10-acre site called Casino West to the city, along with over 500 acres of surrounding land. This 10-acre site had been used by Riverstone Group as a staging area for their quarrying activities. Later on, it was also host to a construction equipment retailer. Casino West has always been seen as having the highest potential for future commercial development of any site in the city. It is strategically located where Illinois Route 92 and Interstate 280 meet, affording it very high traffic counts. It is accessible from a controlled intersection shared with the casino. It is outside of the floodplain and is not a wetland. Even if it was part of a wetland, which it isn't, it would only constitute about 0.7% of approximately 3,430 acres of wetland in the area. 10-acre site against 3,430 acres. This map shows the location of Casino West within the city boundaries, shown in yellow. The city owns most of the adjacent land. Outside of the city boundary, there is a mix of public and private county land. This map shows recognized nature preserves in the surrounding area. On the Iowa side, there is Nahant Marsh and Credit Island. On the Illinois side, there are conservation properties along the Rock River, as well as thousands of acres of federal land along the Mississippi, shown in pink. You can also see the area in dark blue that makes up the formally recognized Mylan Bottoms Preserve as well. This map shows the DNR-recognized duck blinds on the previously shown public lands. These blinds are scattered throughout the area and used by hunters at different points during the year. Hunting of this kind has been taking place on both the public and private lands in this area for many, many decades. The area around Casino West has changed significantly through time. Over the decades, the landscape has been variously farmland, woodland, quarryland, and also wetlands. Here you see a comparison of aerial photos taken 50 years apart. On the left, you can see the Casino West site and its surroundings as they were in 1955. Notice that the site at that time was simply farmland adjacent to woodland. By 2005, however, the area has been altered with the development of the highways, the creation of large quarry pits, and higher water levels. These higher water levels are the result of various factors, including beaver dams, and more importantly, the Army Corps of Engineers' decision to stop maintaining Mill Creek. Mill Creek is an artificial waterway created in the 1930s, redirecting the flow of creeks passing through Mylan and southwest Rock Island. It was necessitated by the building of the Hennepin Canal around 1900, which significantly altered waterways in the area. As Mill Creek has silted in, water has backed up to flood woodlands. The many dead and dying trees in the area are evidence of this. You can also see the site preparation underway for the casino around 2005. The site today, shown here in some drone images from just a few weeks ago, shows some signs of its past uses. There remains some light poles and concrete pads on the site, as well as the old gravel access road. You can also see that it is an effectively high and dry table in the area, with most vegetation limited to its periphery. It is, in fact, one of the highest points in the vicinity. This map shows FEMA-designated flood zones around the site. The light green area in which the site is located is determined not to be a flood hazard area. As you can see, the site is actually at an even higher elevation than the casino across the way, which is partially in a flood hazard area. This map shows DNR-designated wetland areas. The tan area, again in which the site is located, is not wetland. The city has undertaken some site readiness studies for this site to confirm its general suitability for commercial development. These have included general and site-specific environmental assessments, a wetland delineation, and soil conditions evaluation. All of these have come back positive. The water table, for example, is a full 20 feet beneath the surface, and soil consists mainly of compacted sand and gravel. This is what one would expect based on the history of the site. It is important to note these are not exhaustive studies. They were only intended to confirm that the site was basically developable. They do not include evaluations of other factors that would be specific to a given type of development. That brings us to the proposed development now at hand. Back in early 2024, a developer working with Nature's Treatment of Illinois, NTI, expressed interest in developing the site. They proposed dividing the 10 acres into 2 parcels. On one parcel, they would construct a cannabis dispensary with a consumption lounge. The lounge would be an amenity rarely seen in Illinois and take advantage of the scenic views of the surrounding wetlands. On the other parcel, they proposed a new gas station. Based on a market study undertaken by the developer, there is unmet market demand for a gas station at this location. The city has also heard over the years from businesses located along the Andalusia Road corridor that they would benefit from such an amenity being located much closer to them. These are renderings of the dispensary looking at it from the west, from the wetlands side. The second floor lounge, as you can see, overlooks an outdoor seating area, and you can see how it would look both in day and at night. These renderings show the gas station. The developer is planning a convenience store kind of on the right side of the building and a possible restaurant on the left side. Again, you can see how it would look during both the day and at night. Finally, this rendering shows the entire site. Now, this layout remains conceptual and subject to further changes. The gas station side of the site, for example, includes on its far side a car wash and truck scale station. The developer may not include those elements in the final plan. What will be included for sure is the extensive landscaping shown around the site. In addition to retaining the existing trees along the perimeter, the developer intends to add as much vegetation as possible to provide a buffer between the site and the surrounding area. This may also include an earthen berm intended not as a flood protection structure, that's not needed, but instead as an additional buffer. Lighting and other site design elements will be as low impact as possible and will need to meet all applicable city standards. At this time, I'm going to pass the microphone over to the city manager, who's going to speak about the city's financial position and how this development impacts the budget.
Thank you, Miles. I want to talk about the financial implications of this project and the importance to the city. As a little bit of background, I'm going to talk about the budget situation, and then I'll talk a little bit about the development agreement, and then turn it back over to Miles to talk about the process for this project to be approved. As you know well, the city has struggled with budget deficits over the past several years. We had a $3 million budget deficit this year, which we used surplus revenue from prior years to balance, but we can't do that forever. I've spoken before about the importance of balancing the budget three ways. One, increase revenues or enhance revenues. We've done some of that. The other is cut expenditures. We've done some of that over the years. We're 15 employees down from where we were several years ago. And then the other area, kind of the three-legged stool, is to grow the economy, and that's where this project really comes into play. Many projects have a small impact to the revenue or over time. It takes time to get the full revenue from the project, like you've seen with the TIF district and the casino. But this project's a little bit different on how we do that. Number of challenges we talked about this year about balancing the budget. Because of personnel cost increases and the number of employees we have, the budget increases about $3 million a year alone in personnel related expenses. We've struggled with negative fund balances, and we're trying to decrease those, but that's also a large task as well. Pension cost here is a good example. Over 10 years, public safety and pensions have increased from $5 million to $11 million. As I said, in the 2025 budget, the levy increased as a result of the EAV going up. That helped a lot, but we're not going to see that every year. We cut about $1.4 million in costs out of the budget, and then we balanced the remaining deficit, $3 million. Now a little bit to the project impact and how it will help with our financial situation. In this case, there's two types of incentives that are being provided. First is TIF, and the second is the business district. Those two funds will provide for the incentives in this project, and then all of the property taxes and sales tax that the project generates will go immediately into the general fund, and that's a little bit different than some projects. We estimate conservatively that the project overall, and all the different types of taxes, cannabis, sales tax, property tax, food and beverage, that it could be that it will be north of $2 million once it's up and fully running. It'll also create jobs, not just long-term employment in the two businesses, but also construction jobs as well. And it'll help drive customers to the area, which will benefit the casino. Talk a little bit about the development agreement. It has obligations on both sides, obligations of the city, obligations of the developer. Under the agreement, the developer will provide for a dispensary and a gas station, start construction within 1 year and complete it within 3 years. The city will receive $270,000 in revenue from the sale of the property. If it's not developed within 3 years, then the land will revert back to the city. Under the agreement, the city is responsible for providing for the off-site public infrastructure, and that will be paid for through the TIF, which has and will continue to have sufficient revenue to pay those costs without any debt. So there's no debt involved in this project at all, so we don't have that risk. The incentive is capped at $6 million or 50% of the project, including the public infrastructure, which we estimate to cost between $2 and $2.5 million. And then the remainder will be paid from the business district on an annual basis up to 10 years. So in many ways, it's really a performance-based incentive. If there aren't sufficient sales, they won't receive that incentive. There was some discussion about the stormwater fee. It's waived under the agreement, but we fully anticipate that the stormwater fee will be exempt anyway. Stormwater fee only applies to properties that put stormwater directly into the city system, and in this case, that won't happen. All right, Miles.
So returning to the development and its timeline, this chart shows the various approvals that the project will require. Some of the initial steps, like the creation of the new business development district, are already complete. Other steps will not take place until final site plans are ready for review. What staff want to highlight is the eventual consultation that will take place with U.S. Fish and Wildlife along with the Illinois DNR. These agencies are responsible for assessing the potential a project like this one may have on wildlife and their habitat. Consultation with these agencies is required before the development can take place. This consultation includes a review of compliance with the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act, which we know has been of specific concern. If in the course of consultation it is determined that there will be negative impacts, the agencies will advise on what mitigating actions should be taken. This could include changes to site design or investing in wetland protection elsewhere to provide an offset. In any case, the developer should be reasonably able to address mitigation requirements and move forward as planned. In addition to following all of the regulations and going through all the appropriate permitting, there is a goal to leverage the development of the Casino West site to jumpstart broader wetland conservation efforts. The mayor is establishing a task force composed of various experts and stakeholders to advise on the creation of a wetland conservation easement for the area surrounding the site. This group will also help with a management planning effort. As previously stated, this whole area has experienced significant change over the decades. To maintain the wetland environment that has come into existence, investments will be required. To maintain the wetland environment, or to ensure public access and enjoyment of these wetlands, improvements will need to be made. Funds from the TIF and BDD are therefore essential. Staff look to examples like Huntley Meadows Park outside of Washington, D.C. for inspiration. It is an urban wetland reserve with elevated walkways, allowing visitors to enjoy its natural beauty without causing harm. In the years to come, it is hoped that Rock Island will be able to proudly boast that it too is home to a unique publicly amenity like that one. The proposed development is expected to take a year to complete once construction begins. Again, the developer will need to follow all the rules and go through all the necessary permitting. No corners are being cut, and no issues are being swept under the rug. The city values the wetlands and seeks to conserve them. At the same time, Development of the 10-acre Casino West site is necessary to support the city's financial well-being. If there is some negative impact caused by the development, state and federal agencies will direct that appropriate mitigations take place. There may be some who will want more to be done, or for the project not to take place at all. But the simple fact of the matter is that it is up to those agencies to make the final call about what should be done. Staff support this project because substantial economic development is necessary for Rock Island's continued existence as a viable community in the long term. The structural budget deficit the city manager discussed cannot be addressed without big projects like this one. Big projects can have downsides. When all the pros and cons are considered, however, it is plainly in the public interest to move forward. Staff acknowledge the concerns raised by opponents of the project. Their concerns, however, are outweighed by the need to grow our local economy and provide stable government services to our citizens. With that said, the city manager and myself, as well as other staff working on this project, would be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Randy?
So we talk about the gas station, and there's a lot of rhetoric out there about it being a truck stop. Can you explain to everybody the difference between the two? And is it a gas station? Is it a truck stop? Or what differentiates? I think for people's own knowledge, and as well to clarify with the council which is which.
For the purposes of like the local zoning code, it's kind of all the same. Gas station covers a really broad range of different scaled facilities. In terms of state regulations, it's to do with the amount of fuel sold. So it transitions from being a gas station to a truck stop as far as the state's concerned when you cross the threshold of, I believe it's 10,000 gallons sold.
So was there also some talk, I believe, a little on recent past, I guess, about them reducing the number of pumps or something? I mean, that wasn't brought up. I'm just kind of, what do we know about that?
So that's part of the final site design and has not been finalized yet, but we will know when they submit exactly how many pumps they tend to include. What we've been shown are just conceptual drawings, so I wouldn't try to count the number of pumps there and say that's the final number.
So the last comment that I have, or a question, is I think a lot of the people that are here this evening, I know we keep hearing about studies that have been done. I know there was an older study, and could you kind of outline like that study and what we know as far as any current information that we have gotten to, I guess, support this?
So as I said earlier, there's been a number of site readiness studies undertaken purely to establish whether or not the site was viable for development. Those have included a phase 1 environmental site assessment that was conducted for the entire 538 acres that was received from Riverstone. There was a site-specific environmental site assessment undertaken just for the 10-acre site, kind of confirming some of the details in that larger study. There was also a wetland delineation study undertaken, clarifying that the site is not a wetland. And then finally, there was a soil conditions report. That established what the actual soil makeup was on the site, affirming that it was developable, as well as showing where the water table was. There are additional studies, of course, that need to be done, and as I also mentioned, consultations with agencies that will need to be undertaken, but those can't be done until you have a finalized, submitted site plan.
Now, again, I'm sorry, I apologize. I did tell you that was my last comment, but I have one more. So there's been some information that we've seen come across that's been showing where eagle roosting areas along the river and the different lock of dam locations, and I've looked at those, and it seems to me that from the information that I've seen, and I think that's fairly current from the Corps, I believe, and it was about the numbers of eagles and how they document this, and I believe our area was really down lower on the list in numbers. Have you seen that at all?
I have seen that, yes.
Okay. And what is your, I mean, you agree with that, right? What I'm saying, I guess?
I don't have the expertise to argue with the Corps' report.
No, I'm not, but I just want to make sure you've seen that, but I feel
I
like
have.
a lot of people have not seen that, because to this point, it's been, I think, as much information that, you know, the residents can get is better, because I feel to this point, it's been it's kind of a narrative that's been one, and I'm glad we're having this discussion, because it gives the city a chance to kind of maybe respond to some of the things that have been, you know, put out there publicly, some factual and maybe some not. I do think, however, though, that the more information that they can get to see, I mean, we've heard claims of, oh, it's the largest in the lower 48. I've seen some studies showing that eagle population is really not even in the top 10 in the U.S. on some other things. So,
Please keep the
that's
comments.
going to be the last time
limit-
we're probably going to ask. Otherwise, you can leave to keep it down.
Do you want me to say something?
So anyway, that's all I had. But I do feel like that we need to get, you know, the more information out, you know, the better, just so that everybody has a full understanding of what's going on.
And sorry, I just want to clarify for everyone for everyone joining right now, we do have it as an ordinance right now that it's unlawful for any person to, by his conduct, interfere with the orderly conduct of a city council meeting after being first warned that his conduct is disrupting the assembly. So if there are continued outbursts, we'll warn you once, and then we're going to have to ask that you leave.
Miles, it occurs to me that the final design plan from the developer is a big milestone for this project. We frankly cannot go to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or the Illinois DNR and ask them to review the project for any potential negative environmental impacts until the developer provides the city with a final design plan.
Correct.
When do we anticipate getting a final design plan from the developer?
I would turn to my colleague, the Economic Development Director, Tom Flaherty, who has had the most contact with the developer. Tom, do you want to comment a little bit on kind of where we think the developer is at with that?
Their goal is to have it the next couple of weeks. They are taking public input and making adjustments to the plans all the way through. Every time we get a new drawing from the developer, they've been modified, taking into account people's concerns that are being raised. I apologize. We believe that the developer will have final drawings in a couple of weeks. The reason it's taken a while is there's been a lot of public input, and they're listening to it, and they're addressing the public's concerns. So every time they present a plan to us, it's different, it's been modified, and often toned down in response to people's concerns.
Thank you. I have a few other questions. Is
Sure,
it all right if I
go
continue?
ahead.
It's my understanding that the city can make a request for a jurisdictional determination from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Rock Island District for the Casino West site. Has the city considered doing that to ask the Corps if, according to their regulations, the site would be considered a wetland for Section 404 permitting?
Yes, that was actually considered at the time of the original acquisition, and we were advised by the Corps that they will not issue that until a project has manifested. So much like the other issues with consultation with agencies, it's sort of the same thing. Until we have that final site plan, we can't submit it to them for a jurisdictional determination, but that is something that's on the to-do list.
Okay, thank you. It was my understanding that owners of property prior to a project could request a jurisdictional determination from the Army Corps, but sounds like we've already asked them and they said, come to us with a project first.
Yeah, and basically the reason that they communicated that is because they are overwhelmed with requests, so they try to triage the requests.
Okay, thank you. Second question, I have received concerns about potential changes to the floodplain with climate change taking place. Yes, currently FEMA says that this site is not in the floodplain. As a non-ecological professional myself, how do you advise we take into considerations the effects of climate change and whether this site may be located in a floodplain in the future? Has staff reflected on that? Is there any guidance on how council should take that into consideration?
Well, obviously, we're at the confluence of two rivers with a lot of areas that are vulnerable to flood hazard. And so throughout the city, looking at a lot of different developments, that's something that we are always thinking about. That said, there is only so much we can do to prepare, and we do have to make certain kind of weigh out the pros and cons of any particular development. Now, this site in particular happens to be quite elevated, and I would point out, as shown in one of those maps, that the casino that's already down there is about half in the floodplain, half out now. That there could be flooding in the future is something, of course, that we are aware of, but is there necessarily obvious steps we should take, or should we undertake no development that could have some future hazard? Not necessarily. You have to take them on a case-by-case basis. Staff's view essentially is that if there were flood hazards here in the future, that would be something we could address then. But in the shorter term, we have such a need for this kind of economic development project, it is worth taking that risk.
I don't remember the exact numbers, but I think if this site, if the water rose to the level of the building, that you'd actually be very close to having the levee be breached. So you'd have all kinds of problems if the water got high enough to impact the site.
Correct. That would be a catastrophic flood event where at that point I wouldn't be as concerned about this site. I would be concerned about the whole of the city.
Oh, I have repeatedly raised concerns about the downtown levee.
Yes.
For in the years coming, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there. My final question, timeline for this project. It's my understanding that the city's utility and infrastructure work that we're hoping to do at the intersection for the project will not even be done until next year, 2026. So do we anticipate, if U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service approves the project, everything goes through or whatever, I mean, is the developer suggesting that they would start construction prior to the city's utility and infrastructure work taking place?
We have actually explicitly discussed that with the developer, and there is comfort on the side of the developer beginning that work. It shouldn't get in the way of what they're doing on the site for us to concurrently be working on the building of the access road and the extension of the utilities. So we believe those two things can happen around the same time without getting in the way of one another.
But if we don't plan to do the infrastructure and utility work until 2026, are we saying that construction on the part of the developer, again, pending all of the approvals and everything, if the project is approved, will not take place until 2026? Because apparently, and I haven't heard it, I don't know, but apparently the developer has said they intend to break ground this month, which seems unrealistic. So, I mean, are we saying that we anticipate the developer to also not start until 2026 pending approvals?
Well, there's different stages of work that would be taking place, and as you rightly point out, there are also the timelines that may be involved in the consultation processes with those various agencies. I would say from where staff sit now, we don't see any major timeline mishaps, nor do we think that any of these things can't happen more or less concurrently. So in terms of timeline concerns, we don't have those. Obviously, though, in construction, nothing's certain, as you well know. And so we would work with the developer to kind of navigate through anything that might come up that would change the timeline as we currently understand it.
I'm not asking the question because I'm concerned about project delays or something like that. I'm asking the question because the public is very confused as to when, pending all the approvals, the city actually anticipates shovels in the ground for this project. Like I said, they've been told April, they've been told June. I mean, again, I understand that everything is pending on the developer providing a final design plan and then all of the approvals from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Illinois DNR, et cetera. But I mean, what is a realistic expectation as to when, if the project is approved, we would see any construction?
At this point in time, staff can't answer that question because we do not know what the agencies may respond with in the consultation process. So at this time, a true shovels in the ground to pour foundations kind of date is not known.
Okay, thank you.
Does the council have any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Public comment. Could I need the sheet back there, the sign-up sheet, please? Miles Brainerd. Miles Brainerd. Thank you. Go ahead.
So we do have 2 public comment periods. We're going to start taking the comments about the Mylan Bottoms that people have signed up because that is related to this study session. We're also going to put another sign-up sheet back there. If you haven't signed up yet, you wanted to speak and you didn't make the work session sign up, you can go ahead and you're going to be able to sign up on that public comments sheet, and that's for the city council meeting that starts at 6:45. So again, there's 2 public comment periods.
Correct. And of course, with these public comments, they're going to be limited to 5 minutes a person. And we have to adjourn this meeting by no later than 6:30 to get ready for the next council meeting at 6:45. So that'll be our stopping point for the public comments. So please be brief, and if you've already heard it, please try not to repeat. All right, first one up, Dorothy Beck.
And while they're passing something out, for the people that signed up for public comment on this sheet, if they think that we're not going to have enough time for their comment, if they want to re-sign up for the next one, we're only going to take you once, but that way we can at least make sure everyone gets a chance to speak, because again, this public comment period is a little limited because of when we have to start the city council meeting.
Dorothy, it's all yours.
Okay. My name is Dorothy Beck, and I live in the 3rd Ward of Rock Island, where it is my privilege to call Mayor Mike Tomes my neighbor and my friend. First, let me say that from my years on the Rock Island County Board, I know how difficult it is to sort your way through the emotionally charged issues in order to fulfill the obligations of your oath of office. So thank you. I have 3 points I'd like to make. First, I first heard about the so-called Save the Mylan Bottoms group about 2 months ago when a friend and fellow environmentalist told me that Rock Island's plan to sell 10 acres of land to a local family business was an environmental disaster, one that would put the eagles that spend 3 or 4 months a year here in danger. That was alarming news to me, so I did some checking, but it turns out that the eagles are not in danger. The concern for the eagles apparently comes from confusing roosting eagles, where birds sleep at night, with nesting sites, where they lay their eggs. Local experts tell us that while their sleep patterns may be disrupted and disturbed, their nesting sites and their survival are not threatened by this proposal. This is actually the same concern that was raised 20 years ago when Bally's Casino was being planned. But the local eagle population did not diminish at all. In fact, it continued to increase from 5 adults in 2007 to about 2,500 in 2025. That story about the danger to eagles was spread fast throughout a self-appointed anonymous Facebook site that called itself Save the Mylan Bottoms. So I posted what I had learned about the so-called threat to eagles. Within a couple of days, the Facebook site switched its emphasis from eagles to Blanding's turtles, a small, slow-moving amphibian, just about the opposite of an eagle, actually. You can learn all about the Blanding's turtles from a paper posted by my former colleague, Dr. Alan Markozich. The last time one of these little turtles was seen in the Mylan Bottoms was 3 years ago. Over a period of 12 years, not more than 7 have been spotted, and they may be the same turtle or they may be multiple turtles. It's not clear. So the eagles will not die, and the so-called Mylan Bottoms are not threatened by the proposal to develop a 10-acre elevated site. But there is a real risk here. The risk is to the viability of the human population of the city of Rock Island, where we have seen dozens of businesses close and our human population has dropped from over 50,000 in 1980 to under 3,700 in 2020. The survival that's threatened here is the city of Rock Island. Unless we can attract new businesses that will produce good jobs and the revenue that will come into the city from the proposed project, we will continue this dangerous decline. So thank you, Council and Mayor, for inviting a new business here, and do not be discouraged by the loud voices that condemn your proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Kelly.
I'm going to wait until the
Next one.
city council meeting, but I will say to answer Alderman Burt's question. If you have questions about roosting or foraging areas, I'm the one who did the research for the foraging
Okay.
areas. So I
Thank
can
you. That's, yeah.
clear everything that up.
Yeah, that's fine. Nina. Where's she at? There she is.
Hello, Council. My name is Nina Struess, a longtime resident of Rock Island and current resident of Ward 5. For transparency, I'm speaking tonight as a resident and taxpayer, not in my capacity with Prairie Rivers Network. I deeply love Rock Island and feel fortunate to have chosen this city to establish roots and raise my family. I intentionally invest my income back into our community whenever possible. I'd like to address a misconception that seems to be circulating, that Rock Island residents who express concerns about certain developments don't care about economic growth. This simply isn't true. When opposition to particular projects arises, it comes from a place of caring deeply about our city's long-term prosperity and character. Recently, a former alderperson suggested that residents aren't supporting the city financially, contrasting us with a developer interested in the Casino West site adjacent to Milan Bottoms who, quote, sees potential here that others are missing. I'd like to share how many of us actively support local businesses. My earrings and parts of my outfit today come from Brick and Mortar, a family-owned downtown business. I regularly shop at Rock Island Goodwill, get my hair done at Lavish Salon downtown, and enjoy coffee at Holy Grinds, because their coffee ice cubes are amazing. Weekly lunches at Nest Cafe on 4th Avenue, takeout from Domino's or Hungry Hobo, groceries from our local Aldi and Hy-Vee, Saturday mornings at the QC Farmers Market, and Friday summer evenings at Hauberg Estate are all a part of how I deliberately support our local community. Rock Island residents understand economic potential. We just envision it differently than what sometimes is proposed. Many of us have consistently advocated for development in areas like 11th Street, the West End, and 18th Avenue, locations within our established neighborhoods that would generate foot traffic and direct revenue to our beloved local businesses. Regarding my position on the Casino West site development, rather than elaborating further, I'll respond to the former alderperson's hope that we, quote, have enough wise people on our city council to know how important the development will be to Rock Island and its taxpayers. I share this hope for wisdom, but believe true wisdom comes through community collaboration, rather than decisions made against constituents' concerns. As eloquently stated by the Save Milan Bottoms campaign, quote, wisdom isn't measured by how fast we say yes to development. It's measured by how deeply we consider long-term consequences for people, land, and future generations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Phil Dennis. Thank you, sir.
My name is Philip Dennis, a longtime resident of the city of Rock Island. I'm a very proud Rock Islander, even though I wasn't born here. Tonight, I'd like to speak in favor of the West Casino Parkway project, and I have two reasons for my opinion. Based on my almost 60 years of being in the city, I would say, first of all, Rock Island is a shrinking and an old city. We've lost 28% of our population, according to census reports, since 1960. A sizable number of our residents are seniors or retirees, and that demographic seems to be growing. The city has reported that over 80% of our housing stock was built before 1970. And then the most dramatic, the number of closed businesses and empty factories have dramatically increased since the 1990s. So in other words, we look around and we feel that our city is being left behind other members of the Quad Cities. Tonight we heard our city manager explain that our city is barely having enough tax revenue to maintain the services or the quality of our city services. For example, we now have a street assessment on our water bills to pay for better streets. What new fees will be created to provide needed services for our citizens? Private paid garbage collection, ambulance fees, privately paid security personnel for businesses and housing areas, or most of all, will we see an increasing property tax to keep our city afloat? How will seniors and those who want affordable housing survive in a community with increasing taxes? We'll have less people, less residences, less attraction for business development, less revenue, and less city services. What a vicious cycle this starts. The second reason is that developers and big box stores do not want to invest in our city due to those demographics I mentioned before. With this project, we have a native-born local business who wants to invest in our city, potentially providing 30 new jobs just to start with. We have talked about growing local business for years, but this is a real investment. If we deny this project, we are sending a message to all the local businesses that we don't mean what we say. This project puts our city on a busy interstate corridor, which means visibility. The growing cities of our country are using the interstates and have, just look at Davenport and Bendorf, as a way of making a gateway for investment, a gateway for tourism within our center city to see our beautiful parks, our swimming pool, our historic items. So a chance of developers will come and will see our city as a good investment. But most immediately and most importantly, it will generate more than $2 million in new revenue, much of it sales tax, but annually we receive a return of $2 million desperately needed by our city. 10 acres of upland of a former gravel quarry in 3,500 acres of wetland. This seems to be such a small area for a locally owned, money-producing enterprise on a interstate corridor. So the facts will show themselves. Okay the project. Okay this project. Okay whatever steps are needed, get the job done. Rock Island needs it.
Appreciate it. Okay, Justin, is it Border? Okay. Jared Logan.
I'm going to pull off the public comments, Bill. Thank you.
Tim Murphy. Tracy Connard? Is it Trace? I got Tracy. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Hi, I'm Tracy. I was at your last meeting. Is it me? Tracy?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I was scrawling. I was at your last meeting, and this place was standing room only, packed wall to wall with people. We even had a nun here, and of all those people, not one person approved of this project. It seems to me that maybe there are a few people that think that'll bring great revenue, but actually it's going to be maybe 20 employees after all is said and done and they destroy this beautiful wetland. There's other areas that you can do this. They want to piggyback off of the casino. I realize that. You think that a truck stop, it's really convenient how they can't tell us how big that truck stop's going to be until you give them the permission to do it, because they don't want us to know. There's going to be, I heard, 10 EV stations and numerous diesel pumps and numerous gas pumps, lights on 24 hours a day, semis with Jake brakes 24 hours a day, fumes. You're going to bury tanks of fuel in this sensitive area, and I got a really bad feeling that you guys have already made up your mind. Has the sale started yet? Not that I'm asking you that.
I don't know.
So public comment period, it's not a back and forth dialogue, you're free to talk, but council.
I can't hear you, ma'am.
Public comment means that you're free to talk, but you can't address the city council directly and expect them to respond to you. It's just for you to
You guys
speak.
are really cracking down on us now. I guess you don't want to hear what we really want. Anyway, I can't believe that. Anyway, as I said, you guys work for the people, and that little bit of land there isn't going to make or break Rock Island. The people are moving out because you don't care about what the public think.
Quiet. Please keep quiet, please.
And, you know, when all these people tell you, no, we don't want it, but you're pushing it through and pushing it through and pushing it through, I have to wonder, how many of you got your palm greased over this whole matter? Because it sounds really suspect to me. And that's all.
Thank you. We'll take one more due to time. So one more. Tim Presley. Yeah.
Good evening. I am Tim Presley. I own the land adjacent to the projected project. I have an easement through the said property for almost 50 years. The easement is well defined with a 20-foot roadway. The easement agreement was signed June 8th of 1977. My father and I, plus 3 other owners, along with representatives from Moline Consumers, Eugene Huffman, Vice President, and L.T. Green, the Secretary. As we're talking about roads, I'm going to focus on the frontage road. The proposed development property is an island without this access. To my knowledge, the Illinois DOT has not been contacted about this major modification to the intersection of 92. It appears the southbound traffic would go from a 4 to a 6 lane, plus the modification to the northbound traffic on 92. The frontage road will have some of the greatest transformation from the intersection doubling and the road itself tripling in width. Besides being wider, the road will need to move further west into the wetland, filling in 2 to 3 acres to allow the semis to navigate the abrupt turn. The necessary area probably will devour some of the acreage that the developers intend to use. Illinois DOT will insist on a safe project. They will look at the traffic patterns of the whole area. They will need the projected business plan and marketing reports of the numbers so they can analyze the traffic flow. no matter who owns the frontage road, the city will have to mitigate some property and will need to have the environmental impact studies done. The temporary right entry period proposed by the developer, April 14th to July 14th, on the engineering studies. These are important results that we need, but they might be not available for 3 to 6 months. And also, this period of time is going to be affecting a major of the turtles, the bats and everything during their precious time when they're breeding. You have treated the public as though we were playing a shell game. You keep moving the shells around, trying to hide the truth. It might have worked with a couple set of eyes on the game, but now there are over 5,000 watching the shells. And again, you're trying to hide from the public by restricting the number of people and the time limit to bring the facts and the questions to the city council. The city council needs to get all the answers, but most of all, you need to do better for nature, the children, and our grandchildren. And one other thing, I came in front of this council almost 15 years ago to redo the Rock Island River Terminal. When I came across this council, I had all the facts, numbers, and everything. I was open for any questions from the council. I did not rely on a community development to ever represent me. I was here to face the answers, and that's what these people behind me are looking for, answers. And this is about time the council starts doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So those that did not speak that want to speak, please sign up again back there, where you will not, instead of taking off this list, go back and sign up a second time. We will not repeat individuals. So if you already spoke, then you've had your opportunity. Otherwise, we'll take new individuals that have not had a chance. There's a move and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?